The Pharisees went and plotted to entrap Jesus in what he said. So they sent their disciples to him, along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere and teach the way of God in accordance with truth and show deference to no one, for you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us then what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, "Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax." And they brought him a denarius. Then he said to them, "Whose head is this, and whose title?" They answered, "The emperor's." Then he said to them, "Give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." When they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away. Now, again, good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. This Bible verse for today, if you look at it really closely, and you really kind of examine what's going on, the interactions, who's saying what, it unfortunately shows the sad state of affairs in Jerusalem about 2,000 years ago. Now, in this Bible verse, we see the Pharisees, and those are religious law experts. The Jews had 613 laws. That's a lot of laws. So you need some people that were experts in what do you do, what do you say, how do you do this, okay. And that was essentially their job. And they all got together and they plotted against Jesus, a man that they thought was a phony. And they tried to set a trap for him, essentially is what this was. Now, there are a few things we need to understand to fully appreciate what was going on. And the question that they posed to Jesus was whether or not it's okay to pay taxes. And, actually, it seems like a pretty benign question. Like, what's the big deal, right? Pay taxes, I don't know. But at the heart of it, it shows some divisions in the society in the town back then. The Jews were on one side and the Herodians were on the other. Now, in real life, the Pharisees and the Jews and the Herodians were actually enemies. They did not get along at all. The Pharisees saw the laws of Moses, what we call the Old Testament, as that's what dictates their life, nothing else. The Herodians were actually part of the ruling class. Where do you think they got their name from? Herod, King Herod. So they enforced the taxes. They supported the king. So you had the Jews who did not necessarily support the king. They wanted their own autonomy. They followed their own laws. And then you had the Herodians, which came by and says, "No, your taxes are due. You don't pay your taxes, you don't support the king." And what happens to people who don't support the king? It's traitors, enemies of the state. So you can kind of see where this is going. So the Pharisees came along, and their part of the play was they were trying to trick Jesus or ask him a question: do we pay taxes? Because if Jesus said, "No, don't pay the taxes," that meant he was supporting the Jewish cause. But if he said, "No, pay your taxes," he would be seen as being anti-Jewish and supporting the Herodians. So there's really, what they were doing is setting him up for a catch-22. There was no answer he could go either way that would make either side happy. But it was interesting, again, these two are enemies in normal life. They found a common enemy in Jesus, and they were trying to set him up. And so that's actually the scene for what's going on. So Jesus is in Jerusalem, and he's talking to people, as he normally did. They ask questions, they debate things. But then the Pharisees, the religious leaders, came down along with the Herodians, and they conspired, they tried to set a trap for him. And when they approach him, they actually try to butter him up a little bit, offer him these compliments, hoping he won't see through what's going on. Let's go to our first slide, and this is what they actually say to him. Teacher, we know that you are sincere and teach the way of God in accordance with truth and show deference to no one, for you do not regard people with partiality. Some pretty heavy stuff, right? Let's say one of you came to me and, "Hey, Ryan, Pastor, I have a question. You're the teacher. I know that you're sincere. You teach the way of God in accordance with truth. You show deference to no one. You treat no one with partiality." What do you think I'd say? Whoa. What's with all the heavy-handed compliments? What's your question? You see what they're doing? They are setting him up big time, hoping he'll take the bait and let it go to his head. Yes, I am pretty good. I'm very sincere. I'm very truthful. I know what I'm talking about. I'm the perfect person to come and talk about this. That's what they're hoping is going to happen. All right? So they offer him a big compliment, hoping he's going to get sucked into it. And they ask him their question, right? Set him up, going for the kill. Next slide. This is what they said. "Well, tell us then. What do you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" Now you want to pause here for a second. Taxes were not new 2,000 years ago, right? This was not something that This came out of nowhere. What are taxes? We have no idea. Should we pay them or not? All right? So when I read this, I put myself in the situation. Is this something that the Herodians and the Pharisees really can't figure out? Is this the big question that's keeping them up at night? Do we pay taxes? I just don't know. Really, I have no idea. I'm an expert in the law, the Bible law, but I have no idea. I know a man we can ask. Let's go ask Jesus. I mean, really, it's one of those situations. Let me give you an example. You guys came into this church. All of you here, well, you're here. Let me just fast forward that comment, right? You're here. You asked me a question, Pastor Ryan, should we pay taxes to the federal government? And my answer is, I really don't know. That's a tough one. You should leave this church immediately. If I have no idea, from all that I know about, and I can't give you an answer one way or another if you should pay taxes, you should really be suspect about everything else I'm going to have to say. That's kind of a big deal. You should either know, is it okay to pay taxes or not? It's not that difficult of a question. But these people can't seem to figure it out. And that's what they pretend to. So these two groups found a common enemy in Jesus, and they come and they ask him these questions. Now, many times people did come to Jesus and they asked legitimate questions, and he did not get angry. They were great questions. I mean, at one point, the disciples even asked him, well, how do we pray? What do we say? It's a good question. He said, pray this way. He told them, right? But in this particular case, Jesus knew what was in their hearts and where they're going with it. So this is what he said. Go to the next slide, please. Why are you putting me to the test? You what? Hypocrites. That's may not sound like a big word to you guys, but if you want to get another pastor riled up, call him a hypocrite. You can say things about his ethnicity, his background, his mother. They'll work. If you want to really get him going, call him a hypocrite. You know why? Because what you're saying is he is false. He's not just wrong or misguided. He is false. That is huge. And Jesus said this in a public space to these people. This was not a small thing. This is Jesus, the Messiah, the man who died on the cross, who's all about forgiveness and love, and he was. But in this particular case, he lost his patience, and rightfully so. He saw through it immediately. He calls them out on it. He tells one of them, he says, well, bring me a denarius, bring me a coin, bring me a quarter. And to them, okay, maybe it seemed a bit strange, like, all right, we got him now. Who's got a quarter? See, here's your quarter. He holds it up and he says, whose face is on this quarter? I'm like, oh yeah, we totally got him. Keep just reel him in, nice and easy. Whose face is on that? And they say, well, the emperor's. They can't see where this is going. And Jesus, he dropped a bombshell on them. We've all heard this before. Let's go to our next slide. This is what he says. Well, then give to the emperor what's the emperor's. And give to God what is God's. And that's actually quite clever. It's smart. It's a lot of things, but it's correct. But most of all, it states plainly who we and they were. They belong to God. The Pharisees, the Jews, everyone there, the Herodians, we belong to God. You know, the coins that you have in your pocket, the paper, your debit card, that's just man-made stuff that we use to buy and sell stuff, which is fine. It does not dictate our life. Pay your taxes. Be an upright, honest citizen. That's great. Do that. But yourself, your heart, your soul belongs to God. That's what he was saying. You put God squarely in your life. Make him the focal point. You're like your true north. That's the only thing that matters. Now, the Pharisees and the Herodians, if you read the Bible verse again, it says, well, they were amazed by this answer. And then they left. I think amazed is not probably the right word. They realized they were way out of their league and had now been had, and we just need to get out of here. I mean, if you asked Jesus that question, and he said that same thing to you, what would you say in return? What could you say? Nothing. He's right. That's it. That's one of those debates. When that statement comes down, boom, it's done. There's nothing else to talk about. He nailed it. And rightfully so. The religious leaders of the day were spending too much time on the minutiae, all the little things, and arguing about little that really doesn't matter. We do that today. Denominations, a lot of denominations have their own rules, different things you got to follow, and you don't do it right, you're not, you're having problems. I've actually been to a meeting with priests within my denomination, and two priests got in an argument, verbal argument, over how high to hold the cup for communion. Is this good enough or is this good enough? One said this, one said no, it has to be higher. And they started raising their voices at each other. No, it's this, no, it's this. And in my head, I'm thinking, you got to high and hold enough because it's not going to pick up the Wi-Fi down here, so you got to go high. I mean, you got to make light of it somehow. It just doesn't make sense. That's what Jesus said. It's in Matthew. He said, no, it's got to be 2 feet above your shoulders, man. I told you. Wi-Fi's just not that good back there. But this is what we fight over. There's a very nice lady I know who's I believe to be a good Christian, but her Christian denomination teaches it is a sin to use musical instruments in church. That piano is a sin to play during church service. And we got to debate about it. I said, well, show me where. Well, it's not in the Bible. Do you need anything else? This is what we're supposed to be debating 2,000 years after Jesus, whether it's okay to play a piano or guitar in church. Let's go back to the story, because again, I want to shed a little more light on the Pharisees about why, and another reason why they thought they'd really cornered Jesus and put him on the spot. As I said, the denarii, their quarter, had a picture of the emperor's face on it. Our money today does too as presidents, which is fine. But there's a Jewish law against making idols, objects of anyone else, and worshiping them or putting them in place higher than God. So the Jewish religious leaders didn't want them to pay taxes because it'd not only be supporting Herod, but you'd also be, in a way, breaking the commandment about having idols, because you could potentially be, this is an idol, let's raise it up kind of thing. Which I get, but Jesus didn't go for that either. You got a quarter in your pocket. Yep. Buy a piece of bread, if that's what you need, buy the bread. That doesn't mean, that's not what the commandment is about. The commandment is about actually taking an object and let your focus of your life be on that. Let it take the place of God. Whatever it is, it could be anything. But if it's just a debit card that has Mickey Mouse on it, it doesn't mean you're worshiping Mickey Mouse. It's okay. He's saying, this is what we're arguing about. You guys are the religious experts. You guys are the ones, and this is where we are. Is this where we're supposed to be? Many times, I love a good religious discussion, even with complete strangers. You get a chance to really know what people believe and where they come from. And it's a great time to also, at some point, be able to talk about what I believe and why. So I do this a lot at work, for people know. And then recently, the young lady came running up. I'm eating at lunch at the table. I got like 2 minutes. Next slide. This is what she says. And I'm going to try to say it the way she did. Okay. I think I'm going to heaven. I'm not sure, but how do you know? Because I've been to church. I went to Catholic school for a long time, like 18, 20 years. I know the confessions, the prayers, I do everything. Where am I going? That's true. That's great. You know what? That's awesome. And I love her for it. That is fantastic. Everybody should get to that point. So what did I say? Oh, yeah, you need to go. Yeah, okay, go. No, you know what I did? I didn't say anything right at first. Slow down. It's like me trying to tell my kids when they're heading off to school and they got their toast, okay, I'm going to pick up, are they going to actually hear anything as they're walking out the door? Probably not. So the first thing was just, don't say anything. Because if she really wants to know the answer, she's got to do what? Sit. Hang on. There's a lot of denominations. I know some of them are really orthodox. There's a lot of rules, and in some ways those are fantastic because they help you. But in some ways you get so pulled away, you know all this other stuff, but you have no idea what are you supposed to believe. What do you believe? There's a lot of rules. Good church attendance, right? That's one of them. Each of you look around, I know you can notice somebody's not here today. You know who it is, don't you? Didn't see him last week either. Even though we don't take attendance, we gotta do it, right? Y'all know. I know. I'm just kidding. But it's the truth, right? Y'all got your assigned seating. What do you do if someone sits in your seat? God may not find me if I'm not right there. It won't count. I gotta get my card stamped. It sounds crazy, but we do kind of have our little, things. So what I did with her, as I do with many people when they ask about faith and how you go to heaven, and it's not me going into a big teaching or anything like that. That's actually the exact opposite. So go to our next slide. This is what I said. Who do you believe in? What do you mean, who do I believe in? Is that a difficult question? For someone who's been in church for decades? That should be a no-brainer. Who do you follow? What do you mean, who do I follow? You see where we're going? There should be some really good answers flying out of it right now. Were you baptized? Yes. What does it mean? I have no idea. But I was baptized. I can see it worked. So this is what I do. I slow everything down. And I ask you guys this too, because if you can't answer this question, first of all, it's okay. Don't beat yourself. We have some work to do, but that's all right. That's why we're here. But this is the whole point. This is why Jesus got frustrated with the religious leaders. They're the ones that are supposed to be helping people with this. So I ask you now, and answer it in your head. Who do you believe in?
Jesus.
The next question is, you can say, yeah, great, I believe. But Jesus also said, pick up your cross and follow me. Do you follow him in some way? Does your life follow that path? So this young lady I'm talking to, she did. She said, well, I believe in Jesus. That's great. Do you follow him? She said, well, what do you mean? She said, do you look out for others? Do you help those that are less fortunate? And if someone needed it, would you help them in their faith? Well, yes. There you go. And baptism means you're washed clean and you want to follow Jesus as a new person. So were you baptized? She said, yes. You know what I said? You will be in heaven. That's what it means. Nothing else. So as a pastor, nothing breaks my heart more than someone who I've known gone to church for a long time. I say, what do you believe? What do you mean? You know what I mean? Or they go that long and they have no idea. Because if they go that far and have no idea, something's wrong. The church, there's some very good churches, there's a very good pastor, but it's something we all need to look at and reevaluate periodically. Are we doing the right things? Are we saying the right things? Because each one of you here, if you're here for the next 40 years and you can't answer those questions, we're not doing the right thing. We're talking about the right thing. If in 40 years, we're still trying to debate if should we pay taxes? Well, maybe I should just put that in and make that much. I don't want to pay too much. Let me just make it a little less. And that's why Jesus got so angry at the religious leaders. Because they were the ones doing this. They weren't helping people. They fought and bickered about these laws, these rules. And that's what Jesus said, give to God what is God's. That's an all-encompassing statement. Believe it or not, that's everything. There's no loopholes. There's no weekends it doesn't work, or Tuesday, you got off work, you got to worry about it. It doesn't apply then. And there's also a lot of beauty in wedding vows. I'm not saying strange, and I'm going to head off and take a quick right-hand turn here. Almost like, what does that have to do with anything? You're going to see in a second. There's no accident when I read through these vows. You're going to see there's no loopholes there either. They're all encompassing. They're really quite beautiful, and there's a reason they're like that. So think about these words as I say it. For better, for worse. For richer, and for poor. In sickness and in health. To love, to cherish, to death parts us. It's beautiful. It's all-encompassing. It's everything it's supposed to be. And that's how our relationship is supposed to be with God. That's where marriage came from. The Bible frequently talks about Jesus and his church being in a marriage. We belong to him for better or for worse. For richer or for poorer. in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death brings us home. That's cool. That's what it's about. As I finish, I do want to tell you a story in the Old Testament. It's one you've probably heard of before. But like many stories in the Bible, we tend to remember the big, amazing, cool things that goes on. And we kind of forget or miss the little stuff that's really, really important, that actually drives the whole situation. The reason why it happened in the first place. It's in Daniel chapter 3, and there's three guys. I'll start with the first two, and I'm sure you can sound off the last one. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Steve, Mike, and Dave. Right? So the story goes that King Nebuchadnezzar built this huge gold statue, and everyone was supposed to bow down to it. And he actually said, when you hear the singing, the chimes, the bells, the lyres, when you hear all that music, stop whatever you're doing and turn towards this object, this big old object, and you must bow down to it. Anybody that does not will be burned in a furnace. Tie you up and throw you in a huge furnace. Pretty clear. Anybody vague on what's supposed to happen? Right? That's exactly how they said it. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were there as well. So when the time came, everybody bowed down. The king and all of his religious people are looking around the crowd. They see three guys did not bow down. So they called them up. Let's go to our next slide. This is what they said, those three men, to Nebuchadnezzar. If we're thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve will be able to deliver us from it. He will deliver us from your majesty's hand. They're still showing respect for his office. But, this is what we need to remember. Even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have set up. There was a blazing hot furnace in the periphery. And this is what they said. On the one hand, yeah, it's great, God's going to be there. But what else did they say? Even if he doesn't, we will burn alive in a furnace. Because why? Are we angry, want to stick it to you? No. Who do they belong to? God. For richer, for poor, for better, for worse. It's not negotiable. There's not even another option in their mind. It's just simply how it is. And that's beautiful in a way, and that's how it's supposed to be. That is the epitome of belonging to God no matter what. As opposed to what you see in some of the prosperity movements. All about blessings. And was there a lot of blessings in there for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? No, there was a furnace. And they were actually still bound and thrown in there. The furnace was so hot that the soldiers that threw them in there died of their wounds. They were thrown into the fire. So even the part about God will rescue us, can you imagine being bound and they're carrying you toward the fire? What would you be like? It's a pretty good time now, God, to step in. Anytime. Just saying, any time. Get better, come on. It's getting hot. Let's do this. And then it's silence. You know why? See, that's the story. That's tough, right? It's crazy tough. But what do they say? For richer, for poor, for better or worse. That's who we belong to. And God did save them. The story goes, as soon as they're in there, the king's like, did we not just throw 3 guys in there? There's 4. Dave, get out of there. Where did the other guy come from? It was an angel protecting them. The king says, get out of there. And they walked out. The cords, of course, had been burned. They were fine. The Bible says they didn't even smell like smoke. Their clothes in that furnace. And that's what Jesus is trying to get to. That's what he wanted these religious leaders, these Pharisees, to see back then. That that's what they're supposed to be teaching people. That's how it's supposed to be for them. And nothing can change that. That's what Jesus told in so many parables and stories. So people would get that. It makes sense and something would connect. You know? Like a young lady who ran up to me at work. Got a question. That's awesome. Love questions. What's your question? Am I going to heaven? What do you say? What do you believe? And that's what Jesus said. Who do you belong to? It's not tough. This whole Jesus Christianity thing is not difficult. We make it really difficult a lot of times, right? It's not. Who do you believe in? As I finish, I hope that each one of you, when you answer that question, can say, I belong to God. Some days I'm good at it, some days I'm not. But that's what I belong to. Like I said, when I say my prayers at night, there's times that I forget. There's one prayer that I do say pretty regularly, and I think I said it recently. Hey, Lord, if I forget to say my prayer, on those days, copy this one and put it in there for me. Copy paste. I believe in you. I belong to you. Please forgive me. Because I want him to know, even I can be boneheaded. I can have those days. But who do I belong to? Now, the very last thing. This is cool. A couple years ago, I work in a hospital, and I got called to the room, and there was a guy, and he was an older guy, probably 97, and he was a day or two from passing away. His heart had reached its end. And he coded the day before, and they got him back, and he's laying there. And I kind of found out he's a pastor, which is great. He's one of those guys, even though he retired, he never really retired, you know what I'm talking about? And so, when we sat down, I said, is there anything you want to talk about? Is there anything I can do for you? Right? Pastor, let me do that. What can I do for you? You know what he said? Who do you believe in? Are you saved? He was within a day or two of leaving this earth, and his concern was one more person might get a chance to know. He helped me that day. That is beautiful. That is cool. And that's what I hope happens to me. I'm 44, right? If I make it that long, great. If not, I'll make it to 50, great. But I hope I can do the same thing for someone. My last few breaths. Do you believe? I can tell you, he sure did. And that's wonderful. You don't need to go to seminary. You don't need to know the whole Bible and everything memorized to do that. It's just a matter of what do you believe? And then when we get started in our faith, we can help others do the same. That's what this is about. And may God be with you. May he bless you with great courage and faith. And may someday that faith do the same for others. Amen. Amen.